All right, looks like we are live. Ugh. All right, y'all. So look here, like the old folks said back in the day, I can only stay a minute. So today, Retro Sunday, we're gonna be talking about a classic here. But before we get into it, got a special guest in the building. My main man, Mike from Did You See That? Back to the Future fan, loves movies, love your breakdown on movies, and just your channel's just so entertaining. I love your content, and thank you for being a part of the stream and for allowing me to show you all my classics because it's hard for me to get anybody to watch my favorite film. So thank you for being a trooper, and I appreciate you, bro. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Plugging your channel in. What you got going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, man, thank you as always for having me on your channel. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, bro, I've just got to say that I'm grateful to you because the thing is, I would say probably within the last year or so, I probably wouldn't have seen a lot of these 70s or 80s movies without you and putting class in session,
Right.
I mean, come on, bro. You showed me all the Rocky movies. I'd never seen them before talking to you, which is just crazy. But yeah, bro, honestly, pleasure to be here. Yeah, if anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Mike from channel Did You See That? Yeah, as Rashad said, I cover a lot of Back to the Future stuff, movie reviews, like Back to the Future episodes of my channels. Currently going through a Michael J. Fox filmography at the moment, each week covering a different episode. I do like Adventure Day videos, so yeah, a bit of all sorts to be honest. And yeah, I've collaborated with Rashad on like some good movies, some not so good movies. And today, yeah, retro Sunday. I like that title. That's a good one.
You like? I just came off the top of the dome with that.
I like it. It fits really well.
Yo, and one thing I noticed, man, I think we definitely have the same taste in movies because so far, all the throwbacks that I've given you, you gave some positive feedback, and that doesn't happen a lot, especially with the mutual friend of ours, Anthony A. Perez, who I don't think is too fond of older movies. He probably would argue against that, but a lot of times he'll say, yeah, it was cheesy. It's a product of its time. I'm like, don't give me that cheese shit, man. That's better than half the stuff they make nowadays. So I knew when I gave you these movies, because we're going to be reviewing all the Rambo movies, by the way. Not today, but just right now we're going to do First Blood, and then we're going to do Rambo 2 later on, and then, the whole series. But I knew when I gave you this series, I said, First Blood, I know you're going to love. I know you're gonna love, but before we get to your opinion on it, okay, I just want to show real quick what we're gonna be talking about today. Give me 1 second here. Cool. So this is the movie that we're gonna be covering. Check it out.
Don't push it. I'll give you a war you won't believe.
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare. Don't forget one thing. A good supply of body bags. First Blood.
Don't push it.
Oh. Yes, sir. First Blood. Nice. Yeah. Back in the day, I called it Rambo 1.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the first Rambo movie I actually seen was part 2. And so I didn't see the first one until maybe like a little bit later. And I remember I was at my auntie them house watching it because she was dating a sugar daddy at the time. Had this big, nice apartment. And we just got out the swimming pool. We was eating hot dogs and eating ice cream and shit. And First Blood happened to be on HBO. And that was the first time I watched the first movie. I said, oh, that's Rambo. So this is Rambo Part 1. And my dad was like, no, boy, that's First Blood. All right, so First Blood was directed by, what's the guy's name again?
Ted Kotcheff.
Ted Kotcheff. If you look at his filmography, the only thing that I recognized was Weekend at Bernie's, and he did a lot of TV stuff. So I'm not a lot of stuff that I'm familiar with his work, but he knocked out the park with this one. And Sly, I believe, wrote a lot of it, and he had to re-edit it because the movie was a lot longer. He had a lot more dialogue, and he had to trim it down because he said it was so atrocious. He almost bought the print and burned it. That's how bad it was to him. But thank God he did because it's a classic. So off the bat, I'm just going to say I love this movie. It's one of Sly's best. Okay, so besides the Rocky franchise, you got the Rambo franchise, which is right behind it. And if you notice, every time he released a Rambo movie, he released a Rocky movie with it. So in 82, I think First Blood and Rocky 3 were like months apart from each other. And then fast forward a few years later, when his career was starting to stale out a little bit, he came out with Rocky 4 and Rambo 2, you know. And then years later, when he released Rocky Balboa, like less than a year later, he released John Rambo, you know. So I guess whenever he's in Rocky mode, he goes into Rambo mode. So Mike,
yeah, bro.
what did you think? What was your initial thought after you hit stop and you know gathered your thoughts? What did you think about First Blood?
I genuinely couldn't believe how kind of invested I was in the movie. Just simply because, as you said, you know, like Stallone had trimmed down the fat as such in the movie and put it down to like 90 minutes. And I was like, for a guy who maybe says, what, less than 20 lines in the whole movie, if that, I was like, I was invested in his character and his journey throughout it. And man, I found myself loving this movie. I was like, this director I never knew of before. But I have seen Weekend of Bernie's. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
Love that movie.
Funny as shit. Yeah, very funny.
Yeah, and to be honest, like after this movie, it's a bit of a shame that this guy's career died as such. Like in I think in 1999 was the last movie he ever did. And it was like direct to TV stuff, so it's a shame. But yeah, bro, I like really loved it, and I kind of like, don't get me wrong. Before seeing this, I think I told you that I've only ever seen Rambo's 4 and 5 previously, so I never got the first 3 and like how that story all came together. I love the last 2 installments, bit over the top, but yeah, I love them for what they are. But yeah, bro, as soon as I pressed stop, I was like, wow, like how attached I was to John Rambo. You know, I didn't expect it.
Yeah, not definitely, and yeah, it was definitely the most grounded of the series. Just a real simple plot. You know, you see him, and it's funny. The first shot you see him, he's smiling, and Rambo never smiles. So the only smile you'll ever see from John Rambo is in this movie in the beginning. So he's a wanderer. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's searching for his friend, his his fellow and comes to find out his friend died of cancer. So now he's down, he's out, he's just walking and wants to get something to eat. You know, he just wants to wallow a little bit, mourn his friend, and get some food, and get stopped by a sheriff played by Brian Dennehy. What's his name? Teasel, right? That was his name, right?
Yes.
Teasel, yeah.
Teasel.
Get stopped by Brian Dennehy, which, by the way, he had a great performance in the movie. He came off as being friendly, but then he had like this intensity about him where it's like, okay, this guy seems like he's kind of, you know, unhinged a little bit.
Some backstory behind him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the man just wanted to get something to eat, and this cop just kept fucking with him. So that kind of debunks the whole black people. I mean, cops only fuck with black people. No, they fuck with Vietnam vets too. Because at the time, you know, the states weren't with the Vietnam War. They didn't like Vietnam at all, and they didn't like anybody that had anything to do with the war at the time. So if you was a Vietnam vet, you was frowned upon. You was treated differently, you know, spit on and all kind of stuff, you know. So this movie kind of represented what vets went through at that time, you know what I mean? And so that's how the whole thing started, man. Just the man wanted to get something to eat, and then the whole thing just went from there, just went downhill. And he really lost his shit when they were about to shave him, and he was having flashbacks about the war. So that's another thing about this movie that I like, Mike, is that it really showed Rambo's PTSD, which they don't really get into in the rest of the movies. So from part 2 and on, he becomes a superhero. But here you get to see him; he's vulnerable. Yeah, like dude, he by part 3 he's Superman. Okay, by part 3 the man is like super fucking human. But here you see his vulnerability. You see that he's a damaged person. He's a little insane. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he doesn't want to bother nobody. He just wants to go about his business, and they keep fucking with the guy. So that's why I think this one will always be the best one, just because, you know, Rambo was a human being and not some Superman that can take fucking bullets and can go head on with the fucking helicopter in a tank, which comes later. Eventually, Mike, he goes head on with the fucking, he's driving a tank and he goes head on with the damn helicopter. Spoiler. Yeah. So okay, so let me ask you, what were some of your highlights of the movie? Like, what did you really enjoy about it?
Yeah, I think you touched on one of the biggest ones with just a simplistic plot. Like, as you said, I love the PTSD flashbacks. You know, they didn't need like a big 15-minute montage. Like, this is what happened in the past sequence. And just as odd little trigger moments happen in the movie, you got like him reacting to that trigger moment and being like, wow, this reminds me of X memory or X time when something happened. And I love that kind of like added to his character again without him having to have dialogue. Like it just a quick flash, and you saw straight away from his face reactions, which is so well acted that wow, this guy's been through shit you can't talk about, kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I love that bit. I love that he was like just a grounded guy, and he wasn't there for trouble. I think I said to you, you know, if the cop didn't stop him, the movie would have been over in like 2.5 minutes, and we wouldn't have a Rambo movie. But yeah, so I love that. I love the fact that like just his survival instincts alone, like especially when he's going up the mountains and he's going in the woods, and he found the material where he uses like a top over himself, which I actually read off. That was just a random piece of like tarp he found in the woods, and they used it as like clothing, and he's actually still got it till this day. Nice. So that's awesome. Although it's rotted by now, but he's still got it. But yeah, I just love like the survival elements, and like you can buy him as this survival Vietnam vet in it. You know, it's not over the top. It's not as if you think like, oh, well, as you said, like later on he becomes a superhero, and it takes away from that, you know, being a vet and taking away from it. So yeah, I love that. I love the intensity between him and Teasel, the cop, like those two, and then the interaction in that third act where it just all kicks off. Is phenomenal. Like honestly, so good. I would say also one of my other favorite moments is, I don't know the character's name, but the guy who played like the redhead cop.
Oh, yeah, David Caruso. Yeah,
him. Like, I thought he was. I mean, I know he's not on a lot, but I love that he was like the only one out of them being like, well, this guy, wow, like this is all of his achievements. You shouldn't really mess with this guy. Leave him alone. He's not done anything wrong. Like the only one who actually realized he's done nothing wrong. In this whole situation, and he was a likable guy out of a lot of them, you know. So bro, honestly, a lot of positives, and I also really like the cinematography. I thought like the way they utilized the shots in the woods, or the shot when Rambo's walking down the hill as the credits are opening up the movie, like just the shot like the lakeside cottage, beautiful. Like, you know, I could have just watched him walking along the cottage for an hour and a half, to be honest with you. Right. It's really, yeah, man, just really awesome movie.
Yeah, you know what? And I tell you what, Mike, if I was one of those deputies and I'm out there in the woods, right? And once I get that information that this guy was a Green Beret and he killed like 20 people with his bare hands and a bear between his toes, yo, I would have lost my job that day. I'm like, bro, what the fuck are we doing here? And I wish you would have been like, hey, you know, you do what I say. I ain't doing shit. I'm a grown-ass man. I got kids, and this motherfucker, no, I'm out. I would have threw my badge down and got the hell out of Dodge.
I agree.
You know, because like you said, David Caruso was like, man, I knew there was something about that guy, Green Beret. And remember the other deputy, he was to the corner, he was spitting out tobacco tomorrow. Yeah, them Green Berets, those guys are badasses.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And I tell you what, the scene that I love the most, besides that third act was fucking crazy, but the scene I loved the most was when he was one by one, not killing them, but just doing enough to hurt them and just showing them, listen, I could, because when he got Teasel by himself, he put the knife to his neck and he said, look, I could have killed you. I could have killed all of y'all, but I don't want that. Like, listen, don't push it. I'll say, oh, give me a war like you won't believe. Don't push it. And when he took the knife away, you could see the red, like, because that knife was so fucking sharp, like it cut through paper. You saw that. So he's so good where he just applied just the right amount of pressure to make it hurt a little bit, but listen, stop, or this is going all the way in your neck. Yeah. And as Johnny Lawrence says, you know, he couldn't leave well enough alone. He would not leave the guy alone.
Nah. I love that scene as well. Just shows like how skilled he actually is. And if he wanted to, as you said, he could have ended them there and then. Story over.
Yeah, well, especially the one guy. I know that shit hurt where the one guy where the trap with all the spikes in it, and it came and it looked like it caught him in the dick. It looked like it caught him like right in. I'm like, that looks very painful.
Yeah.
I mean,
bro.
I just, you know, and then also Troutman, I thought, you know, did a really great job because Troutman really sold us on, you know, because I mean, we already knew that Rambo was a badass, but it's like Troutman just adds that extra, you know, not mystique, but just like that extra myth to that character. Like this guy, I trained him. If you're gonna go after him, just just bring one thing. What, a whole bunch of body bags. Because your guys are going down. Like, I love that line. So yeah, shout out to Richard Crenna as Troutman. He's in Rambo 1, 2, and 3. He didn't appear in the last 2, but he was definitely a highlight in this movie.
For sure.
And you know what, Mike? I want to say this also, man. Like, filmmakers nowadays could take notes from a movie like this, because nowadays, if First Blood was made, it will be 2.5 hours long. It will be a ton of exposition, a lot of backstory that we don't need to see. You know what I'm saying? When you go to a movie, when I go to a movie, man, I just want to see just a straight up, story and not lose me. And sometimes these movies that they veer off and they get into shit that you don't really care about, and there's some subplots that you really don't care about. Like, if First Blood was made today, it would be like a whole backstory about Teasel's wife and how his daughter needs braces, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. No, man, just stick to the meat and potatoes. I don't know about you, bro, but there was never a point in this movie, bro, where I got bored. Ever.
No,
I never got bored watching this.
Not at all, no. And I agree with you. Like, for example, I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but one thing I'm starting to realize is like, tell me about these 80s movies and get me to watch them. Like, all these movies had smaller budgets that had basically just on-set locations. Like, in them woods, you can tell there was no green screen there whatsoever, or blue screen, whatever they use. Less materials. As I said, Stallone in the movie used that tarp he found in the woods as, when he just gets into the mountains, like on set, just, and as you said, like, nowadays they'd have to go into full backstories about everything, give you the nitty and gritty of it, little action, and doing something to lead into a sequel. Right. And one thing I agree with you, is about that just low budget and what they were accomplished with that. Like, you're right, a lot of movies nowadays, so the exposition where to get the main story, they're finishing that scene, and instead of going to the next scene where something's happening, they'll show you a picture of a random woods that looks beautiful, but a random woods or a random image of the city. Then they'll get into what's going on in the movie. Right. And bro, like, I agree with you. I feel like one thing I love, and I think when we said this about the Rocky ratings and the rankings, is that first Rocky movie was just felt like a raw, gritty. Like, at the time, Stallone sold his dog to make that movie, and this movie had that same feeling vibe, being like, right, it's based on the book, but Rambo was kind of just again raw. It felt like they maybe had like a week to shoot in the woods, so they were doing it as quick as they could, using and the on-set locations were beautiful. They used like that mountain. Now I want to go there myself. Right. But yeah, man, like, it's just something about that movie that has that kind of like, that's why it's created a legacy. Same as Rocky, that had that feeling vibe. Whereas movies nowadays, they don't have that, because, like, right, a sequel's going to happen, or they're going to make a trilogy. Like Taken, the first Taken movie was good. Right. Then they had to make another 2. Why?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, stick to the task at hand. Saying, tell a story. And then, if it's a success, of course, studios gonna be like, well, this movie made a lot of money. We have to make another one. And of course, it's a challenge coming up with it, because if you had your mindset on just one movie, then you have to do a sequel. You get something like Karate Kid Part 2, but which not a bad movie. But what made it special, because it told a complete story from beginning to end. It wasn't Easter eggs set up for the next movie. Nah, it's just straight up. Right. This is the story. This is the climax. This is the end of it. Roll credits.
Yeah, exactly.
And shout out to Stallone. Let me tell you something. Probably the 2 craziest motherfuckers in Hollywood is Jackie Chan and Sly Stallone, because Stallone does, especially at that time, he does about probably 90% of his own stunts. So everything you see him do, he's actually doing it. That's how crazy he is. Even with the rats, like, those were real rats in there. He was really getting bit up by those fucking rats. Sly is crazy.
But it just goes to show that he's dedicated to what he's doing.
Right.
And I think it helps that he was at that low point in Rocky where he sold his dog. He had no money. So to him, he doesn't want a professional stuntman to do his things, when he's learned the stunts himself from Rocky 1 all the way up to, like, I mean, he probably has a stunt double at times now, you know.
Oh yeah,
But
of course. But at that time, yeah, he probably like for the real difficult stuff, like when he jumped off that mountain. I'm assuming that wasn't him, but knowing Sly, it probably was. But yeah,
yeah,
at the time, he did all of his own shit. Oh, and I got to throw Tom Cruise in there too. Tom Cruise is another one where he just hangs off of fucking skyscrapers with one hand and just doesn't care, you know.
right.
But yeah, Sly, he did most of his own shit, man. And like you say, he just dedicated to the role and making the movie good. And I'm gonna veer off a little bit here, but I'm thinking about Rocky IV when Dolph Lundgren put him in the hospital. Like he was in the ICU for 2 fucking weeks, you know.
Right.
against a guy like Dolph who warned him I hit really fucking hard. It was okay, it was for the movie, you know. So just so the movie was authentic, he really took some shots. And I remember they were shooting Creed, and the first Creed when Michael B. Jordan got knocked down. And for some reason, the shot wasn't working. And the director's like, damn, like Sly, like, what do we have to do to make this work? And he said Sly looked him dead in his face. He was like, he has to take the hit.
Wow.
Yeah, he has to take, and that's the shot that was in the movie. That's why it worked. So yeah, shout out to Sly for just authenticity and just like you said, no CGI, no green screen, just straight up, just straight up stunts, just straight up realism. And that's why I love Sly, man. And that's why I love this fucking movie.
Yeah, and I'm slowly, like, as you're introducing him into these movies, I'm slowly starting to learn why he's so revered. You know, because before Rocky and Rambo, everyone's heard of Stallone.
Right.
But myself personally, I think before checking out those movies, the only movie I'd seen him in was maybe like Expendables.
Yeah.
But so that was my introduction. So I'm way behind.
Yeah, you're in for a treat, but I have to be honest with you. As much as a fan I am of Sly, he's had a lot of misses too. So his highlights outweigh the misses. But for example, he did First Blood and Rocky III in the same year, right? 82. Good year for him. The next year, he does movies like Rhinestone with Dolly Parton, which Jacob reviewed. Yeah, he did. He did a couple of other stinkers, and it's like, Sly, what are you doing? He says, let me go back to Rocky. So so he does Rocky IV, he does Rambo First Blood 2. And then after that, he does Cobra, which was I enjoyed Cobra. He does a movie called Over the Top, the arm wrestling movie, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't like it.
Right.
So he says, okay, let me go back to Rambo again. So for every 3 or 4 bad movies that he does, he goes back to the franchises that he's known for. But overall, Sly's catalog is respectable. You can compare him and Arnold all day. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say, bro, like the only thing is, like, say like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, anyone of that caliber at that time, especially Stallone, like, he's come from nothing to being this mega millionaire star. At some point, you're gonna be in. I mean, I guess every actor and actress has had their time where they're like, oh, I'll just do this for the paycheck. Like I think Sam Jackson nowadays, he's in stuff for the paycheck. He doesn't care anymore. Right. So I think Stallone at that time, when you said about them stinkers he's had of movies, he probably just thought, wow, Hollywood want me. Let's go do it. Let's go do a musical with Dolly Parton,
Right. Yeah, and I think also just to not get pigeonholed, because sometimes they can put you in a box. Okay, you can only do action movies. And Arnold did the same thing. Arnold was like, well, I don't want to be just the action guy. I can do other things too. But it's like, no, this is your bread and butter. And and so getting back to First Blood, this was, I think, to me, the start of the 80s action genre, because before then, you had films like Dirty Harry and Death Wish, which were all good movies, but Sly was like the first one to like bring physicality to action movies, where it wasn't just about the guy in the suit with the gun and make my day. Like, he was actually doing some stunts and some kick-ass things, and even in this movie, he was small. I think he was like 168 pounds in this movie, whereas every Rambo movie after that, he just got bigger and bigger, of course, because he was competing with Arnold, because First Blood, he wasn't big at all, but then Arnold came with Conan and Commando, and Sly was like, oh fuck, man, and now I gotta bulk the fuck up, I can't let this guy outdo me. And it was a competition between the two of them, so that's why each movie got more ridiculous. But First Blood was so special because it wasn't trying to outdo somebody or another movie. It was its own thing. And not a lot of people realize, and I told you this too, that he only caught one body in that movie. Only one person died and a dog. He killed one person and a fucking Doberman. That was it.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so effective though, because it seems like he killed more because it's a violent movie, but only one body. Well, two if you include the dog.
But that's what we've been saying, you know, like you don't need to be like, right, we're going to have a sequel. We need to have X, Y, and Z. It's like he made that movie because it was based on a novel and he cared about that project, you know?
Right.
And I think that's what, as we said, I think that's what a lot of movies nowadays are missing. Hollywood have been like, right, we've got to make a movie to have a sequel. Otherwise, this movie's not going to be successful.
Right.
And, you know, with that mindset, you know, of the last, say, 5 years or so, how many movies do we get that's action focused specifically and are memorable? You know, I can't really remember one. To be fair, at the top of my head, you know, it all falls under like horror, I guess nowadays if it's going to be memorable. But yeah, action movies are kind of like dying, I guess.
Yeah, they've been dead for a while. Action movies have been dead for. I mean, every now and then, like we'll get like a John Wick or what's the movie with Chris Hemsworth that came out that was decent. Extraction. But like you said, nothing real memorable, like you know, like an Arnold or a Sly. Like those guys, like 30 plus years later, and we're still talking about those guys, and nobody can fuck with them, you know, to this day. Okay. But now here it was. Since we were talking about tough guys, okay, let me show a clip here. Let me show you how tough Sly was, and we're gonna talk about this scene right here real quick.
It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing.
I pull him off, you know, and it's my friend that's all over me. He's got blood and everything, and I'm trying to hold him together.
Yeah. Yo, Trotman's looking like, the fuck is wrong with this guy? Yeah, a little Oscar-winning performance by my man Sly Stallone. But people laugh at that scene because, you know, it was a little extra, but that just shows how broken of a man he was, and how, you know, even though he's this hunter that, you know, he kills wild pigs, you know, he can set booby traps and stuff, but inside he's a broken fucking man. Yeah. And I know sometimes you need subtitles to understand what Sly is saying when he's crying. You know, Sly just doesn't need to talk and cry at the same time. But yeah, that was a tough scene, man, because you just really see like, wow, I want to give this guy a hug, you know? Like, what'd you think about that scene right there?
Yeah, definitely one of the most powerful scenes of the movie. And it's just the fact of, like, you know, from the start of this movie, the only person he talks to is Delmar's wife, or
right. I think that was his mom. Yeah.
Yeah, or his mom, yeah. Mm-hmm. He only talks to her and then the police, you know, when they're trying to put him away. So when he has all this happening to him and he's getting this PTSD triggers or anything, he hasn't got a therapist, he hasn't got a friend he can call on the mobile or on a, you know, a pay phone to be like, right, this is how I'm feeling, or where you at, what you're up to. So when he actually finally comes across his colonel at the end and has that kind of just embracing moment where he knows someone who knows what he's been through, right? Like, he lets it just go. And it's just the fact of, like, I love that scene. It just shows like the rawness to his character, I guess, and how, you know, throughout the movie we get snippets of like his emotional faces when he has a moment of PTSD. But then when it all breaks down and the colonel maybe says one thing to him that sparks that out of him, bro, that scene, I can see why it's iconic, to be honest. And that's ultimately this character you're learning slowly throughout the movie. It pays that off in the end in one just dialogue sequence that doesn't go on even too long either. But the final 5 minutes of the movie, if that. Yeah. But awesome scene.
Yeah, and I always wondered what Trotman was thinking at that moment, because Trotman was the one that trained him to be this killer. So his facial expression, it was kind of hard to read what was going through his mind. Like, was he thinking like, wow, this guy's really fucking crazy? Or was he like remorseful, like, damn, like I created this, like this is my creation, and look how damaged he is. Like, fuck, like what have I done? I don't know, but like what side do you think he falls on that? Like, do you think he was remorseful, or was it more like, this guy's a fucking nut?
I think, to be honest, he was taken aback by it all, because I mean, with his job being a colonel, you know, he could probably take like a wimp, and make him into this elite soldier, or this, you know, like a veteran. Because I don't think throughout the movie we really see his life before going into Vietnam. and like his Green Beret and everything. So Stallone could have been a 90-pound wimp, and then built up to where he got up to. We don't know.
Right.
So I kind of feel like he feels remorse because he's like, as you said, he's like, oh shit, like this guy's actually feels like this. Because I can imagine that mentality is being like, right, you have no feelings, you buy the book, you do my exact every order I tell you to, don't question it, and that's your life. And when he actually finally realizes, like, crap, like this is how this guy feels. I think he's kind of feeling like, wow, like I've done that to him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because he's the colonel, he can't show that. He's like, I don't know. I think he's conflicted, being honest.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, definitely, I think he had to keep a poker face because he couldn't show, even though I guess I don't know if he's still his superior, but he still sees him as a superior, so he couldn't really like. Even when he embraced him, like it wasn't like a warm embrace. It was almost like it's okay, man, it's okay. But damn, what have I done to you? And I kind of got pissed off too because he went to prison, right? And part 2 starts off with him in prison, but went to prison for what? Like he said, he did nothing wrong.
He's done nothing.
He done nothing wrong. Like these cops fucked with him, and technically, he really didn't kill the guy. He threw a rock at the helicopter. The guy was hanging out trying to shoot him. So it wasn't like he purposely tried to kill the guy. He just was like, leave me the fuck alone. And he fell. And then there was even that moment of remorse when he picked up his dead fucking carcass and looked at him and was like, oh boy, might be in trouble for this one.
Yeah.
What were you going to say though?
Well, I was going to say, I think the issue is the cop that fell out the helicopter. There's no proof to show that he didn't purposely kill him.
Right.
To them, they just think, oh, wow, he slaughtered this guy.
Yeah.
Despite him saying, look, I've done nothing, when he comes out behind the hiding in the cliff and he's like, I've done nothing.
Yeah.
I can't do his accent.
Yeah, no, I did nothing wrong. I didn't do anything. And it's like,
that
how
exact
did you...
accent.
Yeah, but like, how do you go to prison for that, man? And like I said, he couldn't leave well enough alone, couldn't leave the man alone. Even Troutman's like, dude, just back off. And he wouldn't. And so because he wouldn't back off, Rambo goes to jail. That's okay. If I have one gripe about the story, is the fact that he went to jail over some bullshit that was not his fault. He was defending himself, didn't kill, like he could have killed him, but didn't kill them, and he goes to prison for what?
But again, I guess it's the fact of like Tizo, sorry, I nearly forgot his name. I think it's the fact of because he's such a corrupt cop, there's no one on the force who's as such going to speak against him. So if he's saying that this guy's committed a crime, although we as the audience know he's done nothing wrong, he knows he's done nothing wrong.
Right.
His word's superior. And especially, I mean, I can't comment, I wasn't born in the 80s or anything, but I can imagine, there's a lot of dirty cops and him at the top, and he's telling everyone, look, this guy's done something. Even if he's done nothing, he's going to jail.
Right. Yeah, which is fucked up, man. Like, just leave the man alone, And I guess his pride got in the way, because he is the sheriff. Like you said, nobody ever challenges his authority. So Rambo's like the first guy to actually challenge his authority and make a fool out of him and have him at knife point. So I guess a man's pride, he couldn't let that go. He couldn't let that slide. Like, nah, man, I gotta get my payback because you punked me in front of my town, and I gotta get you back. And even Troutman had a moment where I didn't like, where Rambo was talking to him on the radio, and he said, "Look, I did nothing wrong. They pushed." And he was like, "Well, John, you did a little pushing yourself." No shit. I pushed because they pushed me. Like, the fuck you want me to do? Yeah. Well, they're like, la, da, 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 da. You ever see Goodfellas?
Yeah, I didn't like the movie.
Oh, you don't really? Oh, you're really okay? Oh, no, because there was a moment with De Niro and Pesci where Pesci and the guy had a problem, and Pesci had to leave. Yeah, and the guy was like, he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, what's right is right. This guy's acting like a fucking jerk. Nah. You insulted him a little bit. You was out of line yourself. Nah, you insulted him a little bit. I didn't insult nobody." So yeah, I was trying to like, well, you did a little wrong too. No, you didn't.
But the thing is, though, Troutman was his commander.
Yeah.
He knows everything he's been through. He's the one who's given Rambo orders.
Right, right.
So if Rambo gets, if a Vietnam vet, a Green Beret gets pushed, they're not exactly going to be like, I'll walk the other way.
Right.
Their teaching is kill the enemy,
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, for a Green Beret, he showed a lot of restraint because any other Green Beret who's got PTSD, the moment that cop touched him, his nose would have been pushed up into his brain. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in the movie, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a cop, I think he might have been at the station, but he had like a tape on his nose.
Yes, yes.
So I actually read up in that scene about the shave, and he, it goes like that with the cop behind. He actually broke that cop's nose in real life.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's why he has tape on for the rest of the movie.
I didn't know that. Well, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, Sly can be rough.
so that's why the shot looks so real.
I guess so. Yeah, so Sly can be rough. To get the shot to make the scene work, he'll rough you up a little bit. And that was the highlight of the movie too. That jailhouse scene where he took out all of them cops in the jailhouse. Okay, that's another moment. If I'm one of those cops and this man single-handedly takes all of us out and we all got guns, I'm not going after that guy. I quit on the spot.
Yeah.
Man, maybe that's why I can't be a cop, man. Look, I'm a coward. I'm gonna come out with it, Mike. I'm a coward. If I know what somebody is capable, of, I don't have enough pride to be like, all right, well, I'm gonna be macho. No. I'm too old for that. No. If I know I can't whoop you, I'm not gonna fuck with you.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, in my 20s, probably. Yeah, in my 20s, I probably in my 20s, even if I knew I would lose, I'd be like, man, fuck that, man. But now you can have it, man. Have it. I don't.
We haven't got time for that.
I ain't got time for that, man. I'm too old for that shit now. So yeah, man. First Blood, simple movie, simple premise. Less is more. Sly did it, like you say. He probably had 20 lines in the whole movie, but just the acting that he does with his eyes, his physicality, like he brought physicality to the action genre, and that's what changed the game, and that's what opened the doors for a Schwarzenegger and for a Bruce Willis and for everybody that came after him. Mel Gibson. Sly started that shit, man. It was this spec on his name. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a grade, and you can give it your grade. Then we're gonna wrap it up and then just give our final thoughts of the movie. So I give it an A+ just because there's nothing wrong I can find with it. Every time I watch this movie, I'm entertained by it. And I just this is just one of those movies where it just timeless. No matter how old it is, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm still be watching First Blood, and it'll still put modern movies to fucking shame. So A+ is what I give Rambo, man. Sly, my second pops, knocked out the park with this one.
No, I've got to agree about most of that. I would probably give it an A, simply because again it was my first ever time watching this in 2022 when this came out in 1982. Yep. I think I told you like the sound effects were terrible. Like when the car goes through the window and stuff. I mean, to be fair though, I embrace that because it was done in the 80s, and it's like the sound effects and technology they had for that days. I can't really say that was god awful. That's what they had. I think that's one thing. I think sometimes when we do YouTube and when we talk about movies, we get lost in because we're like, oh, that wasn't 100% the best effect they could have ever done or ever used. But from knowing like Q reviews for both of us, like he's a CG artist and we don't know what goes into their work or even the sound guys and stuff, But I would say an A because the thing is, this movie was fun. I wasn't bored throughout any of it. I love the fact of just natural elements in the woods that we touched on earlier. No green screen, no blue screen. Even when Stallone goes off the cliff, it looked like it was him. It didn't even look like a stunt double. I wouldn't be surprised if, as he said, it was him.
It probably, maybe there's like a 40-50% chance that was him. I think it was. Surprised. Yeah, because he's crazy like that.
But it's just stuff like that where like I appreciate this movie because it clearly goes to show, like a movie like this, or say like a horror movie done back in the day, you don't need special effects to make a movie great. Right. And those are the movies that you remember and still hold up from this one from 82 up until now. Everyone knows Rambo. Everyone knows Rocky,
Right.
So yeah, man, I'm just glad I've seen this movie. I'm dying to see the other two because I've only ever seen 4 and 5, so.
Yeah. Well, 2 is my personal favorite. We're going to get more into that, when we talk about it, but like 2 is my personal favorite. So yeah, First Blood and Rambo 2 to me is almost like Alien and Aliens. You know what I'm saying? Both just great fucking film. I'm assuming you've seen the Alien movies.
I've seen the first one.
You've never seen Aliens? The second one?
Nah. Bro, I know.
let me put that down. Aliens down the road.
Yeah.
Yes. We gotta get you on Aliens, bro. Definitely one of my all-time favorite classics. But yeah, to me, Rambo 2, First Blood and Rambo 2 are like Alien and Aliens. Both great movies. I could flip-flop, any day, but I love that second Rambo movie, because that's when Rambo became like a pop culture phenomenon. He was like, each movie, bro, the hair gets longer, the knife gets bigger, and the muscles get bigger, and the kills become more ridiculous, okay? So, yeah, definitely looking forward to checking out part 2 and giving you all the, the history behind that movie and how large it was at that time. Because I think the second one, for a while, held the record for like the highest grossing R-rated movie. I think it might be just domestically, though, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for like an R-rated movie, like that movie made a shit ton of money. I think it was the highest grossing movie, 85. Yeah,
Jeez.
First Blood Part 2, yeah. So,
but again, it's because he's a known name, I guess, at that point.
Oh, Sly, yeah.
Rocky and then Rambo.
But at this point, Arnold's right at his coattails, though, So even though Sly's a big star, Arnold's right there,
Right.
And eventually, by the time the 80s are over, Arnold surpasses. I hate to say it, I love Sly, but Arnold surpassed him, and I'm partially to blame for that because I betrayed Sly. Now, as a grown man, I can talk about Sly now with such admiration, but at the time as a kid, it was all about this. It was about the muscles, and Arnold was fucking huge. Like, I started working out because of Arnold. So when I saw Arnold and I looked at Sly, I'm like, man, Sly's a pussy. Arnold's where it's at. I promise you. I did, man. If you watch Commando, you watch Rambo 2, it came out in the same year. Rambo 2 is definitely the better film, but at that time, it was about Commando. It was about Arnold, because Arnold was fucking savage, bro.
Yeah. I think it's because like Arnold, in a sense, has got more memorable movies.
Mm-hmm.
And like, obviously I know he's mainly known for action, but obviously Terminator is sci-fi, so he's in another genre.
Right.
Jingle All the Way. I love that movie personally.
Right.
But I think
Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, I know it's a guilty pleasure, but I love that movie.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
But I think it's because he's got more titles known like that. Whereas if you think of Stallone, it's mainly Rambo or Rocky.
Right.
As Arnold, you've got like, again, Terminator. You've got, again, like Jingle All the Way. A lot of people know him for Commando. I think you told me about one, Running Man.
Predator.
Total Recall. There's so many,
Oh yeah. You got Predator, Eraser, True Lies. But at the same time, both Arnold and Sly, like Arnold had shit like Junior where he was pregnant, and then Sly had a movie like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So growing up, they did make some decisions where I'm like, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. And so real quick, I just want to acknowledge that we've had some people in the comments, and I apologize for not commenting, but we had to stay with the flow, man. Talk about the movie, man. That's why we're here. So yeah, Shark Theory, shout out if you're still here, bro. I appreciate you from Chicago. Q Reviews is up in here. What up, fam?
Yo, Q.
Much love. John Wick 3 is ill. Yeah, nice, bro. So you got the sound in, no doubt. Yeah, John Wick is probably like the best of the modern action movies,
Yeah,
the John Wick movies are probably
But again, I think that comes down to Keanu doing his own stunts.
Mm-hmm.
I would say him. The most modern action movies nowadays, like you got John Wick and Mission Impossible. That's the two that everyone knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So will we ever see anything like Sly or Arnold again? Probably not. Because I feel like this the times that we're living in cannot handle a strong alpha male doing alpha male shit. Everything's so PC now and so pussyfooting. You can't have a guy like Arnold or Sly hanging somebody off of a fucking cliff with one arm, talking shit to them. That's just not allowed nowadays. But
Nah.
But as the Italians say, what are you gonna do? All right. So, Mike, man, I appreciate you coming in, bro. I'm not gonna take much more of your time. We've been going on for about 44 minutes here, but it felt like 10 minutes.
Awesome.
I always love chopping it up with you, man. Talking movies, we can talk about this shit all day. So yeah, go ahead and plug your channel one more time. Let the people know where they can find you and what you got coming up and all that good stuff.
Yeah, bro. Well, firstly, man, just thank you so much for having me on and being a blast. Yeah, as you said, definitely felt like 10 minutes. I can't believe it's been 45. But yeah, coming up. So this week I've got Light of Day, which is the latest Michael J. Fox movie in the filmography that I'm covering on my channel right now. I've got an episode of Back to the Fans coming up, which is a mini series I do with fellow Back to the Future fans on my channel. And yeah, bro, besides that, I don't think I've got much on this week. I've kind of exhausted myself from the weekend. Just got I posted like 5 videos last week. So don't want to overdo it too much,
Yeah, definitely. Well, after we wrap this up, I'm gonna put the link to your channel in the description. Let them know where they find you. And I gotta catch up on your videos, man. Yeah, you dropped a lot of content, so I gotta play catch up right now. Between you and Jacob, man, y'all be posting like crazy, bro. So it's kind of hard to keep up sometimes, man. But yeah, definitely thank you for coming in, bro. And also if you haven't already, check out our collab we did for Teen Wolf.
That just dropped this week.
That just dropped this week in the class of 1984. So that's part of the Michael J. Fox filmography. And I guess that's it and that's all. So
that's it and that's all.
That's it and that's all, man. So yeah, Rashad G here, Rashad G Reviews. Mike from Did You See That? Thank you all for tuning in. And kick rocks. Get out of here. Okay, in the broadcast.